All right, hello everyone. Go ahead and get started today. One quick announcement before we hop into today's topic. I believe I am caught up on grading. So we've done those two class assignments so far. I am fairly certain I've graded the ones that have been submitted to me. If you don't have a grade for one of those yet, definitely take a look on Canvas. Sometimes I leave a comment if there's a problem that prevents me from grading it for some reason. I know that applied to a couple folks. So if you don't have a grade for something yet, check Canvas and come talk to me if you need to. But I like to stay on top of grading. So I believe I have everything graded. If I made a mistake, if I didn't get to yours for whatever reason, let me know so we can get that taken care of. I definitely would prefer to get that taken care of sooner rather than later, so that we don't have to worry about it and don't have to think about those past assignments any longer. What we're gonna do today is we're going to continue our conversation about Git, but today I'm going to ask you to do a lot more stuff. Last Thursday was a lot of me talking and not a whole lot of exercises. Today it's going to be more of the opposite. We're going to review some of the stuff we talked about today, and I'm going to make you all work, do some practice, and get as much practice as possible. We do have the next in-class assignment coming up on Thursday, so a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today is directly relevant to that, and I'll try and point out specific things that are going to be useful for you on that upcoming assignment as we go through things today. A lot of the exercises today, I want you to work on with other people because Git is really intended for working on in teams. So a lot of these exercises are going to be done either in pairs or you can do groups of up to 3. I think that would be fine. Once you start going more than 3 people, I think it gets to be a little bit too much. So groups of 2 to 3 on these exercises. But before we take a look at the exercises, let's just do some basic review of the stuff that we talked about last Thursday, because you're going to need this stuff as you work through the exercises and also as you work through the in-class assignment this Thursday. So let's start with some of the basics. We talked on Thursday about how Git is sort of a decentralized system, meaning that it lives on GitHub, and it also lives on your computer and the other computers of your team members. So how do I get a repository from GitHub on my computer is the first question that I would like to review. I'll give you the first part. Obviously, we're talking about Git, so the command that we need to do this can do a whole bunch of stuff. So what is the Git command that I use if I want to take a repository that is on GitHub and make a copy of that repository on my computer? What's the command? Anybody remember? Yeah. Clone. Clone is what we're looking for. So git clone, and then there's some URL or some address. Usually you just copy that directly from github.com and paste it in when you need it, right? Okay. Next review question. How do I put files into my repository? So I've successfully made a copy of the repository on my computer. How does this work? Make a new file. I want to put that file in the repository. This one, I think, requires a couple of steps, right? So what's the first step after obviously I need to make the file first and do whatever I need to in the file. After that part, first thing I need to do, git add is going to be the first step. So we'll say git add, and then there'll be a file name over here. So what file do I want to add, right? Is the first step. After I do git add, how do I ensure that Git is going to remember that file and all the changes that are made? What's the command for that? Commit. That's exactly right. So git commit is the command that we use to take a snapshot of our repository at a given moment in time. This is how we tell Git to remember the new stuff that I've added to the repository. When we run this command, we have to use the -m flag and put a commit message after it. So this is kind of how this command would look in practice, right? And once we do this, I drew the diagrams last Thursday, right? Where we had the timeline, the repository over time. This is like adding a circle to that timeline that we can refer back to whenever we need to. In fact, that's something that we're going to talk about just a little bit later, as a matter of fact. Okay, great. Let's talk about communication. How do I communicate between the remote or origin, you might hear it referred to, and the local? So let's say I want to take the stuff that's on my laptop and send it to github.com. What's that operation called? How do I perform that action? I heard somebody say it, that's a push. If you're on main, it's as simple as saying git push. That's all you have to do. But we care a lot about branches in this class. In fact, we're going to be talking about branches quite a bit today. So if I want to push a particular branch, the command is going to look slightly different. It's going to look like git push origin and then branch name, right? Whatever the name of the branch is that you wish to push. Wants to go. And then the opposite direction, hopefully pretty straightforward one, right? If I want to take stuff from github.com and get it onto my computer, we're going to move in the opposite direction. That would be a pull. So again, if I'm on the main branch, just saying git pull is enough. But if I am pulling a specific branch, then I need to use the more explicit version of this command where I say git pull origin branch name, just like I do for a push. Specify exactly which which branch it is that I am intending to pull. Speaking of branches, how do I make a new branch? All right, now we're getting into stuff that's a little trickier, stuff that I would have expected you to experience with, right? Maybe some of you have experience doing this stuff, but I would expect fewer people to have experience with these branching kinds of commands. How do I make a new branch? What is the git command for making a new branch? Anybody remember? Checkout. Yes. In fact, this is the first, but not the last time we're going to see checkout make an appearance today. But there's a little bit more. Yeah. We do need the -b flag. So the -b flag is what specifies that we're making a new branch, right? So the -b flag is necessary, and then we just give it a name. What do we want to call it? So this will make a new branch. How do I switch branches? So how do I move from one branch to another? Anybody remember that one? Yeah. It's checkout again, right? Checkout is a very, very important command, one that we're going to be using a lot. The difference between, what I'm talking about now versus the previous one is that this time we don't need the -b flag, so we can just check out the branch directly by saying what the branch name is. Let me see what else I need to talk about before I turn you loose on the first exercise here. I think that actually is pretty good for now. There is more stuff that we need to talk about, but I think this is all that you will need to do. The first exercise that I would like for you to do today, give me a few minutes to kind of help you set this one up because it does require you to work with at least one other person. So hopefully you've already kind of identified one or possibly two people who you want to work with. You're going to need one repository. So you don't need more than one repository. You're both going to be operating on the same repository for the purposes of this exercise. And I want to just get you as much practice as possible with pushing new work, the other person pulling that work down onto their computer. This is the classic Git workflow that you're going to be doing both on the project and also probably any other Git project that you work on as a professional after you graduate. The first step is to make sure that your partner has access to the repository. And I haven't talked about this yet, so I think it's important for me to just go through this with you very briefly. Once you've identified which repository you want to use, you can either make a new one today, or if you want to use one of the ones you made from last Thursday, that's fine as well. But regardless, once you've identified which repository you want to use, you're going to need to go into the settings and then click on collaborators. And okay, you might have to type in your password. And then once you get to this screen, you should be able to add people. So whoever you're working with, right? Whoever owns the refrigerator is going to need to add the refrigerator here in order for these exercises to work today. So that's the first step. But once you've got all that set up, you're ready to complete the rest of the exercise. So one of you is going to make a branch, add a new file to that branch, push that branch, and the other person is going to pull it. And then I want you to swap places and have whoever pulled it is going to do the push, and whoever did the push is going to do the pull. I want to, as I said, get you as much practice doing this as possible. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut and let you get. I'll give you a good 5 or 10 minutes at least to work. Please raise your hand if you get stuck or have any questions. Don't worry. Yeah, that's nice. I swear to I swear. I literally swear. Never slide. I'm good at talking. Oh no. Yes. I'm trying to. I'm saying it to me. Thank you. Uh, now I have a very long. Oh, each. You know, we're introverts. Wow, this is a lot. That's fun. That's the thing I hate about a file. Yeah. You're like, it's not just. Yes, we're in. Let's get it. Hey guys, for today. Happy weekend. It's really not what? Sorry, ship the kids out to that's called it's arranged. It's about say. I mean, that'll be shit. It's a lot of question. I mean, I watched I don't know, sitting. Got it. Yeah. But pretty much like seriously, when you have kids and like yeah, but it just takes shit. Oh. Like, I didn't get up, it's in a body. Like, it's just, people need certain sense or like I sort of think like yeah. Probably right now I just want to know. Actually that's I sat down and watched it. I don't know. Everything going okay with the kids stuff? You guys feel like kind of let me know if you need any help, okay? What's up? That was kind of getting. Fatal. It was just. I don't think that might be either that. Oh, it's not that side. Sorry. Oh, I mean the sign. Oh, I assume that. No, just make sure the arch dash page from the bathroom. But was not. And that's the Yes, what's up? I so she invited me to her and it's not showing. I'm gonna go back to the page and check your notification. I was right there. That's going. So just oh, it didn't work. Okay, so there, guys. Oh, true, right? Yeah, I just had another group tell me that it was a branch. So it's probably already been a minute though. Oh, so I thought it worked for one of you, but not the other one too. That's also very confusing. Is there another email address I could use? I didn't want to talk with you. No. Jeffy's most of the time haven't sent their loose ask, but sometimes people said it's yeah. Sure. Wow. If you really need to, you can hit the trash button, or actually, you can probably copy it and send it to you like on a message. It's a copy button. The one you have. Yeah, try sending it to me. Yeah, just send the link that way. Hopefully that'll fix it. Hopefully. Yeah. Okay, so after you clone it, you usually have to CD into the directory before you can start running it. So you merge branch, it's not bothering this. Looks like you're trying to Very good. Yes. Yeah, and then I just get at give the camera yes. I'm sending a little test. See the other bottom. I think one of those like Yes, okay, there.
I didn't start with
File. I'm still into your race. Yeah, I was up in
so much driven by the line. Put it down any part of God, 40 foot down. Oh, yes. That's what it's saying. Oh, it's very great. So the whoever else thoughts are off for that would have to gain for it. That's right. That's it's all good. When we get to the top. Yeah, you can get my door.
Yeah, that's what you're thinking. But the right for you. But yeah, you have to sit here. Yeah.
I need C was correct.
I didn't already.
Whatever. I just. Alright, now, right, I can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, I'll feed it.
Fine. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it's maybe you do it.
And when they excited. I know, yeah, so. I mean, it's like people. Yeah, so. So we're, yeah. Well, oh, error. Push, failed to push in your.
It's not the thought.
Oh, maybe you don't. Yes. But see, when you do I, you have to move it. Oh, one, down. No, so.
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, couple more minutes on, or I'm gonna move along. Oh, that's me. But someone will.
Yeah, brilliant. Because you're thinking of.
Yeah.
When you gave the grant. It's free bit of a stick.
My favorite. Free answer. It's single gently. Oh, wait. Okay. Oh, reason so. Yay!
Love your neck.
Good sign. Good feeling. Okay. Sure. All right. I know that you may not be 100% all the way through this one just yet, but I know a lot of us have been making good progress on this. There's some other things I want to chat with you about today. So I am going to move on. If you're not quite finished with this one yet, don't worry about it too much. You'll have a little bit more time to work on it once we get to the next exercise if you need to. Let's talk about some of the more some more advanced Git concepts that we talked about last time, starting with how do I merge a branch? In fact, some people were playing around with this when we were working on that last exercise, which I think is great. And the nice thing about merging branches is it's very, very simple. However, I like to caution people that while this command is pretty simple and straightforward to understand, I usually don't do it this way. The one situation where maybe I would consider doing it this is if I'm the only person working on the project. But if I'm working on a project with multiple people, especially if it's a lot of other people, then this would be considered bad form. Instead of doing it this way, you want to give your team members an opportunity to examine your work and provide comments on it before it actually gets merged in. So instead of doing things this way, does anybody remember how we might perform this task instead? What tool we use that this provides to us to merge branches instead? How do I provide an opportunity for my team members to comment on my work? Might be a better way of phrasing that question. Yeah. So pull requests were the magic words that I was looking for there. Yeah, I think there's multiple ways you can do it, but I'm used to doing it directly through github.com. Yeah. So in fact, I think later on today we'll actually take a look at doing pull requests. But yeah, most of the time I use pull requests for this. It is good to know how to do the merging in case you do need to do it manually, but most of the time we're going to use pull requests to perform the merges for us. Especially once we get to the project, right? And you're working on the project with your team members, I'm going to expect you to use pull requests to perform the merges for you, not do the merging manually. Let's talk about some other stuff. How do I see past commits? So this one is a little tricky or a little less frequently used, I suppose. But does anybody remember how I can see a list of all the past commits, the command that I would type in? Anybody remember? Yeah, it's the log. Yeah, it's the log. So if I'm in a repository, which I'm currently not, but I can fix that. Give me just a second to cd into a repository here. All right, here's the practice repository from last Thursday, as a matter of fact. When I type git log, remember that this is what the results look like. It shows me a list of all of the commits. I would like to remind you again that these commits are moments in time. And we can go back in time and examine the repository as it existed at these moments in time if we wanted to. The way that we do that is by taking note of this value right here, which is the commit number. I know there's letters mixed in there as well, but it is a number actually. What command do I use? Let's say I've identified this commit as one that I'm interested in, this commit right here, and I want to go back in time and look at the repository as it existed at that moment. What git command would I use to do that? Anybody remember? Big old hint, it's actually a command we've already talked about today multiple times. This is a tricky one, so I'm not too surprised that I'm being greeted with silence. But it's our good friend checkout. It's our good friend checkout. So that checkout command is doing a lot of work for us, doing a lot of things for us. But we have to use that commit number. So I have to say git checkout followed by the commit number. So, if I wanted to do an actual example, I would say git checkout, and then I would say D2FAE. You don't need the whole number. You just need the first few, right? That's enough for it to figure out which one I'm talking about. And once I say that, oh, whoops. It's telling me that I've made changes and I haven't actually finished making those changes yet. So it's not going to let me do this checkout until, let me just do a commit real quick. And then I'll try that checkout again. All right, git checkout D2FAE. There we go. That time it worked. So now whoops. Although it pulled the wrong. Oh no, it's correct. It's correct. Yeah. So it actually tells us that this is the commit where we're at. And if I look at the files, they're going to be in the state that they were at back when this commit was made, which in this case was last Thursday. So I'm actually looking back in time at the files as they existed when I made this commit last Thursday. And when you're done and you want to get back to the main branch, right? How do I switch branches again? Checkout. When in doubt, the answer is maybe check out. Not always, but maybe. Uh, just check out the main branch, and that'll get you back to the main branch, back to the current state, back to the present moment in time, not looking back in the past anymore. The reason I'm bringing this up, the reason I'm bringing all of this up is that on Thursday, you have an in-class assignment, and using the checkout command to pull a past commit is something that you are going to need for the assignment on Thursday. So you might want to underline that, put a star next to it, whatever you need to kind of keep that one fresh in your memory until Thursday. I promise you, you're going to need to use the checkout command to pull a past commit when we talk about the in-class assignment on Thursday. Cool. All right. Let's talk about conflicts. So conflicts are another, sort of a natural side effect of using Git. Tried to explain last Thursday about how conflicts, yes, they can be scary, but you're going to run into them. It's just a fact. It's going to happen anytime you have lots of people working on the same repository, on the same files. Conflicts bound to happen. Let's start just reviewing exactly what a conflict is. So I didn't see any groups running into conflicts on the last exercise, and that's because you all were on separate branches and maybe even separate files. But if I am changing the same file, so if two people change the same file from the same branch in two different ways, we then are in a situation where conflicts are certainly possible. And so that's the situation that we need to be aware of. The big question then is, how do I resolve conflicts? We did talk about this a little bit last Thursday. There's basically two steps to resolving conflicts. Does anybody remember the first step? Doesn't involve a git command, actually, the first step. If git tells me there's a conflict in a file, and I want to fix that conflict, my first task is to do what? That's okay. It's okay if you don't remember, because you're about to get some practice doing this. Step one, open the conflicted file. Actually, it could be multiple files, right? There's no reason it has to be just one. There could be multiple files in conflict. Open the conflicted files and fix them. Now, fix them is kind of vague, right? What does that mean, to fix them? That depends very much on the project that you're working on, the files that are conflicted, right? If it's code, then you need to look at the code and decide, all right, which of these versions of the code do I need to keep? Do I keep this one? Do I keep the other one? Do I keep both of them and just figure out how to merge them together in some way? That's your job as the programmer to make those decisions. Git is not going to make those decisions for you. Git is not going to decide which version of the conflicted file to keep. You need to make that choice. So, the answer could be I keep the first copy. The answer could be I keep the second copy, or the answer could be I keep both of them and figure out how to merge them together somehow. All of those are possible answers, but it's up to you as the programmer to make that decision and then fix the file, make it work properly. Once I do that, does anybody remember the second thing that we need to do to resolve the conflict? This one's a bit easier. Yeah. We just add it. Yep. Add the fixed file and commit. And then we're done. The conflict is now fixed. So one of the big things that I get out of this class, especially today, is to not be so stern about conflicts anymore. Accept them as just a natural, price of doing business. That's just how it works sometimes. And give you the confidence that if and when you do run into these conflicts, that you know how to fix them and it's not going to bring everything to a screeching halt until you figure out how to solve it. It's not that hard. It's actually not that hard to solve these conflicts. The next exercise that I'm going to ask you to do is going to ask you to work with that same partner or partners that you did on the previous exercise and try to force conflicts to happen and then resolve it. So let me go ahead and put that up on the screen for you now, right? This time, make sure you're both on the same branch. Everything's up to date. And then remember, for conflicts to occur, it has to be the same file. So you both need to make changes to the same file and you both need to commit those changes. Then when one of you pushes and the other one pulls, that should trigger the conflict state. And when the conflict is triggered, you may see some warning messages. It kind of varies depending on the computer that's being used. But if you see some warning messages, definitely raise that hand. I'll come around and help you decipher them if you need me to. Otherwise, I'm going to let you get to it. Let me know if you need any help. Let me know if you get stuck.
So we also are in good branch. So you merge branch things. Yeah. Okay, so now we all want to five. Come in. So you should.
So, it has to be, you also be on the same rank. Pick one of the rank channels.
Then you can.
They're all rank.
Wait. Right. Should be all that's wrong.
Okay, what if you try to check it out? That's
And it's just.
So if you do, you have to check it out once before it's actually registered. That should be part of how it is.
That's why I had a record.
Very common.
So then how would you do that?
We're gonna do that later, actually. So don't worry about that right now. We'll do that later.
Oh, only one of you should. So. So I think that was a bunch. I see now I have to. You changed my your outfit, try to pull my. Change it. Do you have previous all? No, I put that up. That's all right. And that's what I did. So look. Makes skill girls. But now my heart. So yeah, you feel it. I split it fully. Or but just at one. Wait, you committed it. What'd you do? Then yes, no.
Professor, yours? I usually feel origin.
Yeah. You can say it. I've already sent around brand to me. And you have to use the form. I say it's not get full words into that brand. Yeah. So I wanted to make their changes. If necessary.
So then I change what I.
But you ain't done.
That was
Nothing.
Yeah.
Like just like what you got it, well, like, you know, I don't think it's that.
What's up?
This.
You can do Phil by running the ball. But it's not your pattern, it's the first one. Google, yeah, you're stuff. Or just the virtuals. Didn't do what? Oh, sure, sure. Oh, that. Shoot. After you run that, next line, it's after you do your username. But did you virtually?
Wait, yes.
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah. That stand for modified, somebody modified the. I don't know if you intended that. I don't know. Actually, that. Mine said I have my previous needs. That's it. Like four. Right there. You could guess. What do you know? That's the thing you know. You might be less than brand. Oh, origin and then a name that right now. Because the examiner was on so nothing right? Actually, I'm expecting that system. Free and it's like choose.
That's why I'm.
Yeah, really. So
We've got
just
try that.
and try and do
Then-
your. Oh, yeah.
And then I have to just like this side.
Yes.
Go this. Wait, and then you're gonna lead it? I just.
Oh, yeah. Just.
Like we. Start off.
Yes, I'll do that. Yeah. I think we're trying. No, I haven't figured it out. Oh, now you know.
You do. You do.
Emailing, yeah, and you have emailing your. Yeah, this is nuts. So there are a few different ways that. I don't know if we- So they got fast. And it's.
I'm trying to see what I stood in. Guys heard. So.
I do get it.
And what? You should we get? Should you be in? So you're in Maine.
Or.
Like this is what happens.
Okay, so it worked.
Sorry. Use the.
Now.
Now it says there's a. Okay.
Hello.
Oh. State it for 36 already. I just don't us. Some friend. I think I have a. So have you pushed all your changes?
Right.
I should have been suspects. Did you delete it to drive changes?
I deleted, yeah.
Yeah. You said get.
Delete, look, see, look.
So you need this. It's always, so it's get. Okay, this is the second. What thing, actually,
I believe. The way that I found.
yes, but she's like this, that branding is.
Run that again.
Well, I then just.
Now do your.
Like.
Now,
you should say them. Maybe I'm glad they didn't.
that's
It's saving guys.
Hey guys, all right, yeah, I like this message. So the middle. Yeah, perfect. You're good.
It's. Oh, I'm. Professor Cruz?
Yes. Wonderful. You're on the right track. So this message, I expect this. There's actually 3 ways that we can resolve problems. That's like told you about one. The one that I told you about is the 1%. So run the get big bold out this. Do the pull. Do the pull. Yeah, do the pull again. Then open it up. There you go. Now open it again. And I think we'll see what I started. You won't have to run that new basic command again. Now that you run it the one time, it'll do it that way. So, thanks. Yep. Let's go do the
Oh, last. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so we all read it. First, I can mind. Hold on. Normally it's your requirement. Yeah, and it gives me this fair. You can choose your the divergence to me just goes wide. Fine. There's only short. Yes. Something I RM. I don't understand what I'm doing. Yeah, I just remember. This is the I can try and go on. That's not that. Right. So we cross the. Yeah, what did you say? Yeah, choose something. What did you do? You know, that's how it says, right here, it says full. Nice job.
Just a couple more minutes on this one. Let me know if you get stuck or need any help.
Up there. Yeah. So.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
Control X. Saying right there, exit, and the caret is.
Oh, I think it meant like really.
Now it's asking me want to save.
Okay. Yeah.
Now this is a common issue, and it's actually a good. It's a good thing. Yeah, good thing. So there's actually 3 issues that you can resolve conflicts. I've only told you some. And the way that I told you is so run the middle if they go through. Don't get the age. Yes.
I could fit it right like that.
My friend.
This will override. Yeah, go ahead. Although it may have already done. So you already did the poll, so it probably won't work. But if you did the poll, if you did this first, and then did the, it would show you the fine. But since you chose the first option, I just go ahead and leave it automatically. Which is just a different way of solving the problem. Not necessarily better or worse, just different. Question.
It's output dot 2 CSV. Or 200 for CSV and like parentheses and then.
Okay, so try and do a poll again.
Dot CSV equals.
That seems fine to me, so.
Okay.
Oh, good, yeah, it looks like it works,
Yeah, it
now that you
worked.
ran the, you need to, yeah.
Good word.
Yeah, that's.
See, I push it.
So. Okay, so maybe it's
That's,
I figured I just looked at this can't be right. Does it now, like for me, it's, like when it goes up and you know, refill on. Right. When I was like, I think. Why do I have, or 80 plus two? Yeah, because honestly, I try things. Yeah.
so that's not more.
I don't know why. I sort of know.
Let's say that's
So, right then, okay, now it shows up. Oh, my brain just screams. Wait, I how to fix the ones that don't want to be able to. Well, listen, I did, I thought I asked this other things, and then I thought I did them all three. And then I looked at the head, all no, and then I did, I tried to. So everything, and then on the side, I sheet. So. And then it's again, for test. Science. I don't. It's just. And then after that, I did. No. And I merged it, never mind. Oh, what it's rocks.
Yeah.
That's all. I should merge it again. No. It's all like, and then it was like, that people did that, the back and give me skin. Excited. They're not very yeah, but well, what is the option? Oh, but then, yeah, then I did. I, well, when I was.
All right.
So this one. And then I.
So check out the, check out or whatever branch.
That's the site.
Sure.
And then
I did that, yeah, that's,
Okay.
that's right.
I was saying, and
So it's definitely a fix that. So it's
And so it's, very clean up. We did the same thing.
and then illustrated this problem. This one I'm a little less certain of. It's giving me two options, right? I would maybe try the first one with the skin. And then see if you can do your push after that.
Click continue before, and then I was just repeating the whole process.
Oh yeah, try skip and see if that works better.
Hi everyone, all right. It's okay if you can get all the way through this one. Definitely from somewhere. That's okay, right? But this is meant to be a learning process, so if it didn't go exactly according to plan, better now than on the project, hopefully, right? So, I really am happy with how well everybody is participating and taking it seriously, though, so I appreciate you doing that. I want to take a little bit of a detour. We've got a little bit of time left. There's one to touch on that you'll need for the next homework assignment that I wanted to go over with you today before we run out of time. And then if we have more time after that, we might have time to do one more exercise. One thing that we haven't talked about a whole lot in this class is code. For anything, right? They showed you some which is showing you any Python or any Java or anything like that. And we're definitely going to start moving in that direction. That is something that we do care about. Quality in particular, something we'll be talking about a lot in the upcoming weeks. But today, I want to kind of just start with some basics. How do I actually run code on the command line? How do I run a Java program on the command line? Because most of us, especially if all you've done is taken the intro class, probably used to clicking the play button or the go button, right? And then the computer just runs the code. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in between you clicking that go button and then the output getting displayed on the screen. And one of the big things that happens is called compilation, where your code is compiled. What that means is it takes the Java code that you wrote, and which is for people, right? The Java code is for humans to look at, for people to look at, and it converts it into code that the computer can use, which is ones and zeros, or machine language, you might hear that referred to. It's not something that a lot of programmers necessarily have to think about because, as I mentioned, VS Code will do all that for you, and you don't even see it. It just happens, in a split second, and then you're off and running. But if you're working on the command line a lot, you actually have to manage that process yourself. So it becomes a little bit more complicated, but still not a terrible process to have to manage. For starters, I'm gonna try on my command line here, just running the Java command. And if you're on a Windows machine like me and you have installed Windows Subsystem Linux, like I have, when you run the Java command, you see something like this. If you're on a Mac, if you're on an Apple machine, they usually have Java installed by default out of the box. So I would have expected you to see the Java command. It might complain, it might say, I need more information, but it will be there. It'll be pressed. It's not going to say command Java not found, like it says on my machine, where it doesn't know what the Java command is, right? However, the nice thing is that it's telling me where I can get the Java command. So in order to do that, we need to talk about what this line is doing, what this command is doing. There's a couple of different pieces about it. We're using which for Ubuntu, which is the version of Linux that is probably the most common, most popular version of Linux, that's called a package manager. It's a way for me to install programs from the command line instead of having to go to Java's website and download Java and install it that way, which is maybe how you did it in 131, right? It's not necessarily wrong to do it that way, but it's awfully convenient to be able to install programs via the command line, especially if I don't have a monitor hooked up to that, or if I'm SSHing into a different computer, right? I'm not going to be able to go to the Java website and do it that way. I have to do it via the command line. So the package manager that exists will depend on the computer, but apt is a very, very, very popular one that you'll run into pretty commonly. The other part, this part right here, is a command that I know some of you know about. You told me about it, but it's worth knowing. Sudo stands for super user do. So the super user is just an admin account, right? Or we might call that the root. I might just refer to as super user account. On the command line, anything that requires administrative privileges, right, is locked behind this sudo command. It's going to make you type in your password before it will actually run that command. And anytime you find yourself in a situation where you're using necessary, it's intended to make you stop and think for a second, right? Because the actions that you're performing as an administrator, as a super user, can potentially cause great harm to the computer if you are not careful, if you do not understand what is going on. I'm not saying that to try and scare you necessarily, because I use sudo all the time, and so far have only broken my computer a few times in the process. But it does happen, right? It's definitely a thing where if you are using administrator privileges recklessly, you might run into problems that can make your whole system. I literally made it so I could not boot my laptop one time because I accidentally deleted some of the display drivers and it could not show anything on the screen. That was a long time ago, but it happened and it was a real pain in the butt to have to fix. So, just be careful. Just stop for a minute, make sure you know what's going on. Anytime you run this super user do command, sudo command, make sure you understand what you're doing and the possible effects that it can have on your machine, because if it's harmful, it's not going to stop you from doing it. You have to stop yourself from doing those kinds of things. All that being said, this command, or actually a command that's very similar to it, is the one that we'll need to use to install Java. Again, Mac users, you do not have to do this. You should not have to do this. I suppose it's possible that some of you Mac users may not have Java set. I'd be very surprised if that applies to you. Definitely chat with me and make sure we get that taken care of. But for all of you Windows users like myself who are doing things, Java using this moves me to the J group, which is the Java runtime. That means I can run Java programs. But that's not good enough for me. I want to be able to compile Java programs as well, not just run them. So I'm going to install, not the JRE, but the which stands for the Java Development Kit. This is actually the same thing. If you took 1301, same thing that we make everybody download and install on their computer on the very first day of class. Exactly the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and run this command. It's going to ask me to enter my password. Again, anytime I use sudo, it's going to ask me to enter my password, and that is meant to make you stop and think. Is this important? Do I understand what's going on? Installing stuff usually isn't that harmful. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my password. It'll go off and look up what I asked for. So it's saying all of these other things, which looks like a lot of stuff, but most of them are probably just little things that aren't actually all that big. And it's asking me, do you want to continue? Yes or no? I do. I definitely want to install Java and use it on my laptop. So I'm going to hit yes. And off it goes. It's downloading all these different things. These are called packages. And it's going to install Java onto my laptop. Now, once it's done, we'll try that command one more time, Java. And we'll see that this time it doesn't say command not found. It says, oh, I do know the Java command, but you need to give me more information, right? So that's what we're going to talk about next. Hopefully, if you're on a Windows machine, you were able to get this set up properly. If you didn't, definitely take a minute to chat with me after class, because this is going to be something that is necessary for the upcoming in-class assignment. Did you have a question?
Is it different than pip install or pip install?
So pip install is a package manager created by Python, and Brew is I don't actually know who runs the homebrew package manager, but it's specifically for Apple machines. This package manager app that I'm using is specifically for Linux installations, mostly Ubuntu, but I think some other Linux versions use it as well. They're all very similar in terms of what they provide. It's just different sources of stuff. Yeah. So if you've used pip, you already know how to use a package manager. This is just a different one. It works slightly differently, but mostly the same. Yeah. And we'll have different programs available, of course, as well. It's not going to have the same stuff available, but so if we have successfully installed Java, this will allow us to run Java programs, but actually before we can run a Java program, we have to compile a Java program. And the command to do that is not Java, but Java C, where the C stands for compile. I don't have anything to actually compile yet, though, so I'm going to take a brief moment and make a hello world Java file real quick. So public class hello, public static void main string args, system.out.println. Hi there. And then close brackets. All right. So the actual Java code, not super important, just making a very simple, bare bones Java program that just says hello and then gets out of there. How can I compile and run this via the command line? That's what I would like to show you next. So let me go ahead and quit out of Vim. The first thing that we're going to do is use the Java C command. So the Java C command is what compiles the Java file, takes it from the Java code that I wrote and converts it into zeros and ones for the computer to use. So I'll say Java C hello.java. And the fact that it didn't complain is actually a good thing. That means that it seemed like it worked. But what did it actually do? If I run ls, we'll see that there's a new file here that wasn't here before. This .class file is what was created as a result of me compiling the Java file. The .class file, that is the zeros and ones. That is the machine code. In fact, if we take a look at the class file in Vim, we can see that, oh, there's some stuff in here that I can kind of piece together and recognize. Like there's my hello message right there. But there's also a bunch of stuff in here that I have no idea what it is. It's not for me. This file is not for us. This file is not intended for humans to be reading or manipulating. This is a file for the computer to run. This is for the computer to use, not human beings. So this is actually what I would call a binary file. This is binary code, right? And so then in order to run this, I'm going to get out of here. Now we'll use the Java command. The Java command is what we use to run Java programs. And pay attention because the command that we're going to run, I'm going to say hello or hello. Say hello. That is the name of the program. Or another way of thinking about this, I have to put down where the main method is, right? This is the file where my main method is. If I have lots of different Java files, then I want to run the one that has the main method in it. And once I do this, we'll see that, okay, awesome. It now actually finds that. And it turns out the welcome message that I had in my simple hello world .java file. So that's how we compile and run Java code. It's a two-step process. We have to use Java C to compile first, and then Java to run the program after that. It is a little bit more complicated if you're working with bigger projects that have more than one file. We might talk about that at a later date. But for the simple stuff that we're doing on the next in-class assignment, this is all you need to know for now. But that does bring me back, bringing Git back into this, right? Let's talk about that class file for a second, because that class file is an example of something that I would never, ever want to see in the file. So compiled code that is not human readable, but is meant for the computer, should never be put into. The reason being that class file is intended to run specifically on my laptop. When you compile code, it is compiling it for the computer that you are on. So if I gave that class file to someone else and said, hey, try and run this on your computer, maybe it would work, but I would say bigger odds are that it wouldn't work because your computer is not the same as my computer, right? If your computer was similar enough to mine, maybe it would work. But if it's very different than my computer, that class file is not going to work. We do not have to put that class file in the repository because all the other people on my team are not going to have any use for that. If they want to run that code, they'll need to compile it and make their own class files and run their own class files themselves. There are other examples of things that you should not put in repositories, such as your settings. One of the meanest things that you can do to your team is to commit your IDE settings to the repository. Because if you take your IDE settings and you commit them to the repository, the next time somebody on your team pulls those changes and opens up their IDE, they're going to find out that their text is now purple and the background is now green. And they're probably not going to be happy about that, right? That's not how they want their settings to be. Settings are on an individual basis. So I don't want to put them in the repository. Not everybody on my team is going to want to use the same settings as I am. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that shouldn't go in the repository. For the class files are by far the thing that I see in the repository the most, that I'm telling students, don't put them in there. So on the project especially, if I see class files, I'm going to ask you to get them out of there. Fortunately, Git actually provides a way to help us with this, something that's called a git ignore file. So I think I actually already have a git ignore file here, but you can also find plenty of examples of git ignore files online. So if I type git ignore Java, for example, one of the first things that's going to pop up is a file from github.com. And you'll actually see right up here at the top, it's telling me that class files should be ignored. What does it mean to see this in my git ignore file? What it means is that if I have a git ignore file that tells me to ignore class files, and I try to add a class file anyway, right? It's gonna say, hey, you told me to ignore this, so I'm gonna ignore it. I'm not gonna do it. So it'll protect me from doing it on accident. In fact, I believe I can show that to you. Let me first make sure that I have a git ignore file. If you do ls and you don't see one, you have to be careful. It might still be there. Git ignore files begin with a dot. And remember, I know this is from a little ways back, but remember that any files that begin with a dot are hidden by default. So if we want to see those files, we have to use the -a flag to see all of the files. And then I can see it. If you don't, if you run -a and you still don't see a git ignore file, you're welcome to make one. You can just, say vim.gitignore, or you can honestly download one from the internet and plop it in your repository instead. That's fine too. Actually, probably what I do more often than not is when I create a repository, once it lets me do that, when I'm creating a repository, I'll probably just come down here and have it add one for me automatically. So I can type in the language that I'm planning to use, such as Java, and it'll add in a git ignore file for me. So then I don't have to worry about it. But once you have that git ignore file in there, check out what happens once I try to add hello.class, which is a file that I specifically said I do not want in the repository. It's going to say, oh, I see you're trying this file. Those to do what you told me and ignore those class files. It does also give me an option that says if you really, really, really want to do this, right, you can use the -f flag for force, and I'll ignore the ignore and put it in there anyway. But if you see this message, I would say heed it, right? Listen to it. It's trying to protect you. It's there for a reason. You're trying to put something in that repository that does not belong there. And that is absolutely something that I'll be taking a look at when we get to the project later on down the road. The last thing that I wanted to do, and kind of the way to wrap things up, we have 8 minutes left. Get earlier I mentioned how I'm not going to merge stuff myself. I'm going to do pull requests. I think I showed you how to do this last Thursday, but I'm going to show you how to do it again, just because it is that important. I'm going to check out a branch. Do I have any branches actually? Oh, I do. The following. Oh, would be overwritten by checkout. Oh, that's interesting. Please move or remove them. All right, I'm gonna make a new branch then, because new branch. All right, there we go. And then I'll add a test file and put some stuff in it and add it real quick. And then once I push this branch to github.com, once I return to the repository page, which I thought I had up, but I guess I navigated away from it. Whoops. Let me see if I can go back here. Here we go. Yeah, so it says we have recent pushes from this branch. So instead of doing the merge, this is what I hope you'll do. And if you have these available on your repository, I would encourage you to, this shouldn't take very long, right? Go ahead and click this button and see what happens. And it's going to say, all right, add a description, just adding some stuff. This is a terrible description. If I was doing real work, then I would want to list all the work that I did. I added features that do this. I fixed these bugs, so on and so forth. But we'll go ahead and create the pull request. And interestingly, it seems like it's telling me that it has I don't know how this happened, to be honest with you, but it is interesting that it happened to in this particular situation. It's telling me that it can't be merged because there are conflicts, and it's even providing me with this button that we can use to try and merge, to try and resolve these conflicts. So I showed you how to do this on the command line, right? But github.com is also providing us with a way to take a look at our conflicts and try and resolve them. And so, you do the same thing. Just fix it, make it look good. And then, yeah, mark it as resolved. There we go. And now, hopefully, once I fix that conflict, yay, cool. Now our pull request can be successfully merged. So this is where your teammates would come on and say some things like, nice job, good code. Or if it's not nice job, good code, then it might be, there's a bug here, or this looks sloppy. Can you fix it up and make it look nicer, right? Those are the kinds of comments you typically see on pull requests. But once you're done, you can go ahead and merge that pull request in, and it'll do the merge for you. But one final thing I want to point out before I let you all get out of here for today. The branch does not go away. You have the same number of branches after the merge as you do before the merge. The merge just makes the two branches look the same. Just makes them have the same commit history. So after you're done merging a branch, you actually can delete the branch if you no longer need it anymore. That is pretty common to go in and delete the branch after you have merged it in. If you do need the branch, if you're like, well, I think I might need this branch to do some more stuff later, then leaving it there is also perfectly acceptable. But the one thing that you definitely want to avoid is having a whole bunch of dead branches, because then this will just be all cluttered up, right? So having a few branches here is good, but if you have pages and pages and pages and pages of branches here, that's an indication that you've got a lot of dead branches sitting around that need to be trimmed off. Go ahead and delete those branches that you're not using anymore after you merge them in, whether that merges via a pull request or done via the command line. Okay. I think we've covered enough ground for one day. I will see you back here on Thursday for the next in-class assignment. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.